Thank you for your attention as well as your attendance during today's work session. If you recall, this is our scheduled work session for SPLOST 9. It's specifically crafted to discuss our infrastructure-related projects as well as our facilities-related projects. During our initial SPLOST discussion, the Commission declared both infrastructure and facilities as a SPLOST 9 priority. Unfortunately, Dr. Malik and his infrastructure team will not be able to present today, so I will get with your schedules. And while it was my intent to have a joint meeting, that at the last minute ended up not being the case. So I do apologize for those of you in the audience and listening online that were here specifically for the infrastructure portion. But nonetheless, I'm certain that our interim Central Services Department Director, Mr. Ron Lampkin, will be able to provide you with a wealth of information regarding his proposed SPLOST 9 projects. Keep in mind, it is my recommendation to you as a body that we plan for a $300 million SPLOST 9 package. Our SPLOST 8 package was a little more than $250 million, so $300,000 is a pretty comfortable range that I've already spoken with both legal as well as our financial advisors and, of course, our in-house finance department. Before we hear from our Central Services Department regarding facilities, I was tasked with researching the option on including nonprofits. In doing so, ACCG has already published their opinion regarding the inclusion of nonprofits. I gave to you one piece of paper, and if you would turn your attention to page 16, at the very bottom, there is a question that reads, can SPLOST funds be used to construct projects for local charities or other nonprofit organizations? This response is also in conjunction with legal review, in which the answer is clearly no. The gratuities clause of the Georgia Constitution bars local governments from using SPLOST revenues or any other public funds to fund the capital outlay projects for non-public entities. This restriction applies to for-profit organizations as well as not-for-profit organizations, including charitable organizations. Now, I do know, because I'm paying attention to your body language, that this has been something that has been done in the past. If you recall, most recently in SPLOST 8, nonprofits were not included in our SPLOST package. But I am open to hearing what some of your concerns are, so we could go back and see if there are other means to support them versus through our SPLOST package. So are there any questions, comments, or concerns?
I appreciate you looking into it. I mean, I'm not one that would support it, of nonprofits being a part of it. It's just interesting to me that we've done it in the past. The SPLOST in 2014 failed because, and it had them on there, frankly. People didn't appreciate that. So it's just interesting to me that now we have an opinion that's saying they're not supposed to be when we've done it in the past, it seems like. So I just appreciate the research. Thank you.
Quick point of clarity. Have we identified a chair of this meeting? Are you going to chair, Administrator Dowse?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I just wanted to get some clarity because before I was elected, I thought NGOs was in the SPLOST before, and I was going to ask Commissioner Guilford, do you remember when you was here before that NGOs were in the SPLOST package?
Actually, SPLOST 7A was, we had NGOs in, and the package failed, and that's the reason why we went back to the drawing board months later and took out all the NGOs, and it appeased the citizens to where they did support it. I think what we're going to have to do during this session on this package is let's worry about the needs, and our needs are in-house, which deals with public safety, getting our house back in order. We also got the city of Hetzibah and city of Blythe to take in consideration since they have always been part of the package. We got to focus on our infrastructure as well as our economic and investments that we have, such as the T-Center as well. I think, and then if anything's left over, we could consider it. But just what was presented to us as far as the one on the SPLOST 9 building projects, that whole total package coming in at $304 million. And so I think we're going to have to really set aside feelings and separate the wants from the needs. We do need a lot to put this house back in order. We got the public safety issues as far as the sheriff's jail house that has to be built. We have to maintain the other one. We got the fire department's trucks, et cetera. But interim administrator, I appreciate you doing your research about this NGOs as well, because that basically puts it to rest.
So thank you. I wanted to just add in here that I don't disagree with my colleague. I think that we have a great opportunity now to catch Augusta up and, as he said, get the house in order. So that is absolutely right. I just wonder if, so I'm looking at this FAQ and it's saying that we can't use those SPLOST funds for construction projects, capital outlay projects for non-public entities. But if there is a nonprofit organization, let's just say, for instance, the history museums, Commissioner Clark, former Commissioner Clark, had an idea to connect museums. And I believe he wanted to use some SPLOST money to do that, to create some type of city pass to where you can go from museum to museum, connecting Laney to the Arts Museum to the Downtown Museum. Things like that can improve our quality of life. While it's not a construction project, it is a project that nonprofits would spearhead. So in cases like that, would we be able to support, say, a museum city pass, or support some type of organization that's doing, like if our priority is, youth, if we want to do a youth project, we could support an organization serving youth. Can it be used for nonprofit organizations, operations, and programming, or just can't do it at all?
So for operations, no. Yet at the same time, we are, and if you recall during our budget presentation on Monday, we were exploring some alternatives for revenue, for increasing our revenues. And one of those things that the public has already caught wind of is our hotel motel tax. Remember, if that falls in line, then that would be considered tourism. I would consider your museum opportunities as a opportunity to grow our tourism efforts. But at this moment, it's going to be a case-by-case basis instead of a blanketed approach. And so if you have those, feel free to speak with either myself or the finance department, but right now, not under SPLOST 9.
Thank you.
Okay, so now I will call to the podium our interim Central Services Department Director, Mr. Ron Lampkin. Keep in mind, commissioners, that what he is presenting today is a wish list of all of the facilities projects that have come to him. They have not been culled at any point. And so I would like to hear from you what of those projects that already pique your interest. I would like to warn you that his projects alone, facilities projects alone, exceed what I have recommended that we plan for. So that should just give you just an inkling of what you are to look forward to, because again, we will not be hearing from the infrastructure side today. Mr. Lampkin?
Thank you, Administrator Dowse. So I believe most of you have that PowerPoint presentation in front of you. If anybody else doesn't have a copy, there's some extra ones up there at the front. Slideshow. Right there. All right, let's just click the button. All right, so what we have in front of you, as Administrator Dowse has said, is a wish list that came into Central Services of some of the buildings and facility projects that some other departments and some outside entities that we are partnering with have asked for. Also, we in here you'll see some SPLOST 8 projects in the beginning that were funded in SPLOST 8, which we will need more funding for in SPLOST 9 to complete. So with that being said, The first project is our new Richmond County Correctional Institute, RCCI, which was funded $11 million in SPLOST 8. As you can see, this is the design process of that. This is the current facility that you see on the screen on Tobacco Road. If you look just to the left of the screen, this will be where the new facility will be constructed in what is now the existing parking lot. And then you'll see where the new parking lot would be outside of that building. So just a few slides to show the layout of the building and what that would look like in the new facility. And here's where we are when it comes to the costs. So originally this was programmed for 264 inmates. That will equate to about 70,038 square foot. Because of the cost, with the warden and IPG, who is our design firm on hand, we did a little value engineering to kind of cut that down to 248 inmates, which is 48,540 square feet, which took the cost down to about 24 million, or roughly 25 million if you include FF&E on the project. So what we did was got with the warden and said, how many beds do you currently have? Could you do away with some of those beds and cut back on the square footage of the building to get the cost down from, as you can see, it was at 32 million in the original programming. So the current program takes us down to about 25 million with FF&E. I don't know if y'all want to do questions in between or just wait till the end. Just keep going. Okay. All right, and the next is our fleet project, which was another project that was funded in SPLOST 8. SPLOST 8 was $6 million set aside for this project. Just like I said in the slideshow, you'll see this is the current layout. What we did in this project is we are utilizing 10 acres that's owned by the fire department. The only thing that sits on those 10 acres right now is the existing fire station, which is Fire Station 16. So the fire station graciously allowed us to use the rest of the property to build a new fleet facility, which they will also utilize as well. Yes.
I'm sorry. I just want to ask this question because I think I'll lose if I don't. On the last slide, 25 million, we already have 11 of that, so the SPLOST ask will be 14. Is that correct?
Right, that's correct.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Right, yeah. Minus the 11 we already have, correct, yes. So here's the layout of the new fleet facility, which will encompass everything that we have now on Broad Street, which is our Fleet 1 shop for Central Services and our fire fleet. Also, we have our large fleet shop on Tobacco Road behind engineering maintenance, so it would encompass all of our fleet and put them in one location. Here are just some of the layouts of the building that you'll be seeing. This will be the new Central Services Fleet offices, which will bring in vehicles for commissioning, decommissioning. Also, our government seizures, sales, and assets goes with our fleet facility at Central Services. And here are a photo of all our bays that would include it. You have our small bays up front, the large bays for the large vehicles in the back, and office space in the middle, which will house our auto maintenance shop for fleet and the fire station.
The address for this, Old Louisville Road, is that currently an elementary school?
No, it's the corner of Old Louisville Road and Finney Road where fire station 16 sits.
So in that big empty field?
Right, next to the fire station.
Okay.
All that property belongs to the fire department. It's about 10 acres.
Gotcha.
Once again, here's another building for the enclosed apparatuses bay for the fire department, the upstairs, and here we are with the funding. The building construction cost for all the buildings you'll see will be about $21 million. The site estimate work is about $5 million, roughly about $5 million. For all your FF&E permits, testing, and bonds, you're looking at about $8 million. Your professional fees for construction management is 8%, so it's about $2 million. You have your contingency that's included at about $2.5 million. And then, of course, we did an escalation cost at 8% per year for 18 months because we're not ready to construct now. So that's about another $2 million. So the total project budget that we have right now is the $40.5 million minus the $6 million that we already have.
All right, so you mentioned moving all of these facilities off of the current facility on Broad Street.
Correct.
Is that currently City of Augusta property on Broad Street?
As far as I know, it is, yes.
Okay, so will we be disposing of that property?
Well, that would be an option, but later in his presentation, someone has presented a plan for use of that property.
Okay.
Also, you know, engineering also occupies space in that location as well on Broad Street.
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Engineering, traffic engineering also occupies space on Broad Street at that location.
Yep.
And we're not speaking of, when we speak about the fleet property currently on Broad Street, we're not mentioning the transit facility. That's a separate parcel.
Can we use the fire tax for any of this money, for this project?
Yes,
Do you have an idea of how much? Like,
no.
like if it's 40 million, can the fire tax be part of it and then the SPLOST be, I guess is
Yes.
supplement it?
Yes, but how much at this point, I do not have that number.
Gotcha.
And the next project that was funded in SPLOST 8 at $6 million was the Craig Houghton Elementary School future site for a juvenile court center. So that's the picture of the current location. Here is some of the layout of the new facility that would be constructed. So this is the first floor plan concept. Right here, you see the second floor plan concept of all the asks from Judge Craig and the people over at Juvenile Court. And this is the third floor concept, utilization for a future courtroom and holding cell. So that's a layout of the plan in the 3D. And here's the cost concept. So if we did total new construction costs in 2023, it would be $19,264,000 with a total renovation cost of about $18 million. Other costs, which be your site costs, will be about $9 million for a total cost of 2023, $46 million. And that's, of course, a cost escalation ranging in expected costs minus 15 to a plus 20%. Those costs can be adjusted if we just did the rent. So that can be done in phases. So that would not be, that's the total cost if you tried to do everything right now. And speaking with Judge Craig, he requested that we try to do all if we could. He really wants to get the whole entire building done. But like I said, we can go to a phasing process with this and maybe just do the first part of renovations to get the juvenile court staff moved out. If you look at those drawings, some of those offices include offices for DFACs and some of the other juvenile services that juvenile court offers.
And commissioners, I would like to offer you a historical perspective. When we first started down this road, the original request was for 401 Walton Way, which was about 40,000 square feet. Once we concluded the property swap with the Board of Education and obtained Craig Houghton, the plan was to include some other departments within Craig Houghton, because Craig Houghton is about 100,000 square feet.
That's right.
So by now, us programming 100,000 square feet of space, hence you see today almost a $50 million projection. And I want you to keep pace with inflation as well as the cost of construction, because we're planning for SPLOST 9, which won't start collections until 2027. And so the cost that you're being presented with today will increase over time. But I did want to make sure everyone understood how we got from a 40,000 square foot facility to now a 100,000 square foot facility.
Wow, appreciate that. Currently, is there any funds allocated towards this project?
That's the $6 million that's in SPLOST 8.
6 million.
Right.
Okay. And then explain to me, like, the bones of that building are good, aren't they? I mean, it's a school and it's blocked.
Yes,
like-
so a part of that plan, as you see, would be the renovations to the existing building and also some additional new construction that would add on to the backside of the building.
Why are we adding on when it's 100,000 square feet
That was,
and they need 40?
once again, that's why I was saying that was a wish list of the, so we, like I said, we can phase that in. That's not something that we have to do. So we can definitely cut those costs down. It would just be a matter of having some meetings to discuss what they can live with and can't live with.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going from 40 to 100,000, I mean, is there any other entities, administrator, that you envision that could use a part of this building? I know that Commissioner Johnson and I talked about some form of day center support ran by nonprofits in this community. Is that even something we could look at, or what are your thoughts?
So in the early planning phases, there was an interest in the Department of Juvenile Justice coming over to lease a portion of the facility from Augusta. Those conversations have not been fully fleshed out, but depending upon how much space would be available after programming would determine what other entities would be available. They've also made requests for the Department of Family Children Services to be on site, as well as I've had conversations with staff from our court system who are in need of additional space. So I do think from a funding perspective, we would have to revisit the plan for that building because it has morphed into more than what the original intent for it was.
And if we go back to that original intent, what would that cost be?
It's my understanding, and Mr. Lampkin, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the original intent plan has never been designed by an architect. Is that correct?
That is correct. After the architect met with Judge Craig and the staff at the courthouse, these are the things that they asked, and this is what the programming is. But they have done a phase approach, and I think the lower amount of phasing that could be done if we did like a phase one approach would be about $27 million. That's just the first phase, but like I said, it'll be some value engineering that could be done, and then depending on what programming that we decide to use, a lot of stuff could be removed from the project of the ask that they have, but that would be up to us to decide what we want to remove and a series of meetings to discuss what we can have and can't have in there.
Yeah, I think that's definitely worth a further conversation with the courts, especially to truly see what they need and how we went from an original 40,000 square foot ask to over 100,000 square feet now if we're going to be adding on to the existing structure. So, yeah.
I think I just wanted to say is, and it could be rhetorical, is this why we haven't had any movement with moving the juvenile justice over into the site? Because I thought when I first was elected, I thought this was something that was moving real fast and they was on their way into the building. Now we come back with 46 million minus 6 million and then all this other added on. So
Has
I
any work,
think some conversations need to be.
and has any work been done there at all?
None at all.
Oh. Well, you know, as my colleague from the 9th just said, 2 years ago, you know, yeah, they were pushing. I mean, it seemed like we had to do it yesterday or else everything was going to fall apart. And so I'm hearing 2 years later, we still haven't even moved any paint or
Right.
anything. So.
Right. Once we got the design team on board and they sat down with the judges and the staff over at the courthouse, they kind of said, this is what we want and this is what we have to operate. And so, of course, I'll say there's no funding for that. It's only $6 million. And so I'm presenting this to you guys so that we can make a determination moving forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I'm concerned about with this is the Honorable Craig is retiring at the end of this year. his vision is going to be different than the newly elect Mr. Lyons, the Honorable Lyons, that's coming in. The reason why I say that, Mr. Lampkin, is that when the Honorable Richard Slaby wanted to bring probation in-house, we followed the vision of that judge, and we spent $1.6 million to do this, and we was losing money left and right. And once he resigned, nobody wanted to take that flag or torch and run with it, and so that ended up dissipating and going back into the private sector. So we might want to relook at this, find out what the other judges would want, because one's vision is, is different than the new elect coming in.
Yes, sir, and be reminded that this is just a concept. These are not made for construction drawings, so this is just a concept which can be changed and altered however we see fit. So, like I said, it's a conversation that we may have to come back to the table with for sure.
Right. Mr. Chairman, can I ask the interim administrator something?
I think that we need to identify a chairman. I know the mayor's here now.
Okay.
As finance chair, I think we can yield to the mayor to chair.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can I ask the interim administrator?
Yes, sir. Proceed. Thank you.
Madam Administrator, as far as we're looking at the wants versus our needs in the beginning, shouldn't we be looking at public safety and looking at the other issues that we have that's more pressing that's really we're going to have to focus on in regards to this is a $304 million package as just wants.
Commissioner, this body identified infrastructure and facilities as the priority for
Right.
SPLOST 9, and today is what you are receiving is the facilities portion of that request. And yes, while it is the wants are going to be pared down, and this body, along with staff, would be a large part of paring that list down to present to you. But I wanted to make certain that you knew what was on the table, because someone is going to come to you to say, my project did not make the list. But if you don't know what the list looks like, which was exactly what this body requested during the last meeting, you asked for the list. And that's what Mr. Lampkin is going over now with you, is the list. So while this particular list is over $300 million by itself,
304.
over $300 million by itself, this particular body is receiving just what you requested, and that is the list.
All right, thank you.
But do know that public safety as well as other projects will be presented to you at a later date.
All right, and speaking on...
Director Lampkin, can we engage Judge Flythe? Beginning January 1st, he'll be the new Superior Court judge. Can we engage Judge Flythe on this and have that come back as an update at our next workshop? Just to Commissioner Guilfoyle's point, to make sure that the new chief is his vision and expectations are met.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you.
And on the subject of public safety, this conversation has been before you guys, the new jail pod at the Webster Detention Center. This was done by the architect who built the building, or JLA, which we received from the sheriff's office, of the location of the jail pod and the renovations that needed to be done to the existing building is what you see in this drawing.
Director Lampkin, can you, we have one question regarding.
I don't mean to go backwards again, back to the court conversation, but just off the top of your head, how many square foot is the Ruffin Courthouse? Just for comparison's sake.
I'm not sure.
It's not 100,000 square feet, is it?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It could be. I have to check. I can get that information though, just to be sure.
Right. Proceed, Director.
So on the new pod renovation for the Charles Webster Detention Center, plus some of the cost to make some corrections to the existing facility. We're looking at about $67 million to get this done. I know it was conversation that we were looking maybe at about $50 million in the beginning when we were talking about the bond issuance. But with the issues that we're having with the existing pod, existing pods, it would not be prudent to build the pod exactly how those were built because of the issues that we are having in the pods at this point. So we were looking to and consulted with the sheriff's office about doing some upgrades to those facilities to house their maximum, what we would consider our maximum security inmates. One of those is to get the glass that's unbreakable, because that's one of the issues we having with existing pods, the inmates being able to break glass, and we're having to constantly repair them. Also, some different lighting and different aspects to how they have the phones, also the kiosks to order snacks. So it would be some upgrades in that, and then once again, we do have some contingency and escalation costs in this as well, because we're not ready to go out to bid or start construction on that at this point.
Question, Director Lampkin. Is it my recollection that we decided to bond this out, that we wanted to have the conversation about bonding out Webster versus using SPLOST as a window?
Correct. It was a conversation about bonding, yes.
And is this different than that? Are these just upgrades? Is this what we're talking about, though?
No, this is the same thing. This is for the new pod. It could be included in SPLOST 9, so that was why it's in the presentation. So I guess it will be up to the body to decide which direction y'all want to go in with that.
And also, I believe we were talking about 40-something million at one point. Now we're talking almost $70 million.
Right, like I said, I think we was at about right at 50, but. And then the other issue we have out there in the existing building is the plumbing, also the electrical. So if we were to build an existing pod, we would not be able to put that or connect that to the existing facility. So we would run separate plumbing and also separate electrical. It would be attached to the building, but all the utilities would be ran separate because we have issues now that need to be corrected with the current facility.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Garrett?
Thank you, Mayor. So basically, this is being suggested added to this SPLOST package. Is it basically to service the bonds that we previously discussed?
I think with finance, that may be the intent. Is that correct?
Could you repeat that question, please?
I mean, I thought we had already approved moving forward with the bonds, correct?
We did, and I'm trying to look back, because wasn't the plan for us to do the bonds along with URA? Yes. Which would be in conjunction with our SPLOST 9 package. So while we would bond it contingent upon our SPLOST 9 funding coming available. Hence the reason why it's included in the presentation today. And your jail facility, not RCCI, juvenile, no. The square foot facility that you were just asking about is over 200,000 square feet.
Rough it is?
Yes.
Okay.
So,
All right.
Thanks.
Chair recognizes Commissioner Williams on the fifth.
Yeah, I just want to let Commissioner Johnson know I was in the queue before him.
duly noted, sir, duly noted.
All right.
I just don't want us to forget, ask the administrator a question. We're not forgetting about RCCI, are we? Okay, well, I didn't hear it, so.
No, sir, we're not forgetting about RCCI, and if we move, because these are updated numbers, and so while the numbers have increased from 40 million to almost 70 million now, it was my recommendation, and still is, if we go to bond for the jail pod, we should also include the additional need of now $14 million for RCCI. Keep in mind, we've already bonded RCCI's portion under the auspice that it was a ready-to-go facility, and now to find out that it is not.
All right.
Now 14 million.
No, I'm saying we already bonded the city.
Yes, we already
Yes, and SPLOST
received
8, the
$11
bond was
million.
$11 million for SPLOST 8, correct.
Yes.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner Jordan Johnson from the
Thank you,
first.
sir. I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly. So we're going to go out to the market to bond these projects, correct? Were we talking about using SPLOST to pay off those, to pay the bond? What are we using the SPLOST for? I mean, because I see here we're talking design and fees and equipment and contingency and all this. I just want to make sure that I'm completely understanding what we're going to be using the SPLOST for. Because I thought at one point we were just going to be paying back the bond using SPLOST. Or is that
So I'm not-
the complete
I'm-
opposite? I'm not understanding either. I just want to make sure. Walk me
Okay.
through it.
Well, can I speak for the first part of the question? The design is included because the pod has not been designed yet. So that
Okay.
answers that
Okay.
question. So that's why that's included in it. The new pod has not been designed, so we don't have a design on it as of yet.
Okay. All right. And we'll talk offline about the other part. Because I'm just really want to just understand the whole bonding process, and that's not a conversation for here.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Williams, you still in the queue? You good?
One question for the administrator. How much money are we seeking to bond? I mean, for the SPLOST?
It's my recommendation that we plan for a $300 million package.
Is time going to allow that?
You said time?
Time, because we can only give it so much time to be collected, correct?
Oh, yes. Time for collections will allow that, yes.
Okay, but okay, so how much money is already done? We got so much for fire, we got so much for the pods, we got so much. So have we already pretty much put $150 million in it? And how much money do we have that we can go out and seek to put in it?
I'm not understanding your question. I have finance available as well, but are you
Yeah.
asking how much money have we collected for SPLOST 8?
No, what I'm asking is how much money have we already decided to collect? Like for the pods, you're saying pretty much $70 million, right? We haven't collected anything for it because we're looking at SPLOST 9. So I'm saying we're already looking at $70 million for the pods, correct?
That's what Director Lampkin is proposing, yes.
Okay, 70 million, and then how much are we looking to collect for fire? For fire, we haven't gotten to that yet. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that how much money are we already saying that needs to be collected for a number of particular items, and what is left over for us to kind of say that we want to deal with? So just think about that. We're going to have more sessions on this, correct?
We are. Today, the presentation is presenting all, if not 90% of the facility-related projects that have been requested of Central Services and the Finance Department.
Right.
And so I appreciate the dialogue, the communication to let me know where your thoughts are, what are future projects that you want to see on the final list before it goes out to the citizenry.
Right, and I'm just saying, if we got things that we need, just put it out there. There's no reason to haggle over those, but if you got $2 or $3 that are left over, then we may want to kind of decide exactly which way we want to go with that.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying.
All right. Director Lampkin?
All right, so moving forward, you have in front of you on the screen now is Project Get Up. This is by our Augusta's Visitors Bureau request that they're asking for expansion of the known T Center or our convention center. Right now, it's about 83,000 total square feet. The economic impact that it has is on the screen in front of you. So since its conception in 2013 to 2023, it has brought in roughly about $176 million with events that have been hosted here. What they are asking for, as you can see on your screen, is an expansion totaling about another 100,000 square feet on both sides of the existing building. Also included in this will be an expansion of the parking deck to add another 300 spaces. So together, your projected cost for this project would be $31 million or $31.5 million for the convention center expansion, which is about 53,000 square feet, and then your Reynolds Street parking deck, like I said, for 300 additional spaces at about $10.5 million for a total investment of $42 million.
Commissioner Franham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is this an all or nothing? Can it be scaled down if we can only get
We
them,
do
let's
have
say
a representative.
10, 15, something like that?
We do have representatives here. Derek May,
Brandon?
you want to speak on? And I say Jennifer, oh, you come up.
Yep. I think it's up. Mr. May, if you don't mind, for the record, sir, please state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Derek May. I live at 104 Robbie Court, Evans, Georgia.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Franham?
Yep. So my question is, you've got two possible expansions, the surface lot of the Harrison building. Like, are these both, is it all or nothing? Are you willing to piecemeal? Like, what are your thoughts on that, I guess?
It really, the expansion was on a per square foot basis. What was presented was based on the original, when it was originally built, to double it in size. But that could be scaled. So if we said we wanted to increase it by 50%, then it would, probably roughly scale on a per square foot basis based on the expansion.
How many parking spots would you be losing on the expansion on the surface lot side?
94 spaces.
94, and that's why you need, and then your 300 that you're requesting, are you pretty full already, and that's the reason, you're losing 94?
Yes, well, when you have a convention, it's, it's filled. When we don't have conventions, there's space in the deck.
What kind of, the TechNet and those bigger conference where you're expanding onto the intents onto the surface light, like what kind of economic impact do they make?
Brandon, you want to speak to that one?
Groups like TechNet or Joe Fest, anything that goes into that convention center has a return on economic impact. And along with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, they have a formula that they put together based on the room nights and the spend that comes in based on those room nights and the ADR to facilitate the economic impact. I don't want to misquote the FCA economic impact, but I believe it was over $4.5 million to the city.
Do you have concerns that if this doesn't happen, that TechNet might not come back here, or like?
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a position right now at the property where we're working with them to bring tents in to block off a portion of the parking space so they can expand out onto the parking lot. In fact, this year we're expanding out to Reynolds Street, where we're going to have a portion of Reynolds Street closed for that week just to give them ample space to expand where they need to be. They're in places like Baltimore and Las Vegas as well. So, not just our close proximity markets, but there's other markets outside the Augusta area that we compete with as well.
And do you feel like if this was expanded, you'd have like a wider net to cast into where you're not getting some because it's not big enough?
Absolutely. I think some of our challenges are the convention center right now is built in a sense where you're really a one event show. This expansion would give us the ability to hold multiple events at one time, hopefully leading to more economic impact for the city of Augusta.
Okay. Well, and I'm just one commissioner. I just think that this is important for me. I think that the economic impact, the fact that we could host, GMA or something here in the future, I think that at least the possible surface expansion area, I think 42 million is a little high based on the needs of what we have to deal with, and we've already heard a bunch of things, but I would at least like to see some a little bit smaller and getting support on that, because I do think it's an economic driver and we need it. So thank you, guys.
All right. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, sir. Question, how old is the current T-Center? Well, convention center.
Initially, it was called the T-Center. All the contracts say
Yeah,
T-Center,
yeah.
but the convention center is one that's everybody knows what that means from all over looking for a convention. But it opened in late 2012. The first full year was 2013.
Okay. And the deck opened the same time frame?
Yes.
Okay. What does the deck look like in terms of being used? Is it being used pretty frequently?
When we have big events like Augusta University's graduation or TechNet or any of these large events, it's filled up. So when not, and it's also used, say when we have Arts in the Heart, other big festivals downtown, that's really when the people fill up that deck. There are very few long-term tenants in that building.
So nobody's really they're not leasing spaces right now.
We do have some.
You do have some leasing spaces?
Yes.
How many spots are being leased right now?
Geez. I'd say roughly the first floor and the second floor are basically lease spots. You're talking 75 maybe plus spots roughly.
Yeah, I would love to be able to see these parking decks be used throughout the year. I know with this TIA project happening, folks are going to have to use those parking decks. But I would love for us to talk about if we're going to add 300 additional spaces, and those spaces are there all the time, how can we get folks in downtown using those spaces so that we can start seeing a return on an investment outside of those conventions? Because God forbid something happens and conventions slow down or something. Now we have a parking deck that's not being used. But I would agree with Commissioner Franham. I think that we should look at somewhat of a not cheaper, I shouldn't say that. Let's scale the project back a little bit. But I think this is a good first step. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Chair recognizes Commissioner Garrett.
Thank you. This is a question for the administrator. Currently in SPLOST 8, I know that there's a parking deck in that as well, correct?
Yes.
With that parking deck, is it specific to that property, or could it be reallocated somewhere else?
Those funds can be reallocated
Okay. All right. Thank you.
with additional
14.
conversation.
14. All right. Thank you.
All right. Director?
So with that, I will meet with Derek again. We'll discuss some scaling down on this project and have something for the next meeting.
Administrator Dowse?
Mayor Johnson, may I ask Mr. May a question?
Certainly.
While this project is scalable, if it is a smaller project that is proposed, how will that affect your economic plans?
Well, I think what it means is that we would just have to think, what we haven't done is said, here's the exact events we think we're going to have in the future. We just know that we believe that there's the demand set out there for more space, that we can have multiple conventions and so forth, like Brendan mentioned. Really, it would just mean that as we were marketing the convention center, we'd be targeting the types of events we could fit and hold in the convention center. That answer your question? Yeah.
Thank you.
Speak on that.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Franham.
One thing I'll say is that I agree, and I understand that, but also we're going to have a new James Brown Arena that's going to allow to host some of these events, and we've talked about that on how you can ship them back and forth via buses, and I think that's going to be an avenue that we don't necessarily have to go as big because we'll have that opportunity to use that facility as well.
All right.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
next question.
Ma'am?
Did I hear you, we have identified a parking lot building for, in SPLOST, is that SPLOST 8?
Yes, ma'am. I think the parking deck Commissioner Garrett was speaking of is the depot property. Is that correct, Commissioner Garrett? If you recall, SPLOST 8 has funds for a parking deck that were originally allocated for economic development. AEDA? Nod? Yes? Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, sir. So that money from SPLOST 8 for the parking deck, is that the money that we were talking about developing the depot, or is that different than the development project itself? Is that the same money?
So
like 14 million or something like that?
So the final details have not been fully fleshed out. So I responded to Commissioner Garrett's question in that, can those dollars be reallocated? Yes, any unused funds, once a portion of the funds have been used for the project in which the citizens have voted on, those unused dollars can be reallocated.
So that just means it was allocated for that property.
That's
And
correct.
we used that money to upgrade it at thus far. Now we can move it.
Well, we haven't yet.
haven't.
Those dollars have not been utilized.
Okay. I would really kind of caution us a little bit on that one, because I know that we've been talking about developing the depot. And if we have money set to the side to develop that depot space, I wouldn't be so quick to moving it to this. Not that this isn't a worthy project, but we know the depot is the gateway to downtown's future in so many ways. So let's kind of, think through that one a little bit more before we make a final decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Director Lapkin, is that?
Yeah, I guess we're good on that. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
So the next project on the list will be an animal shelter renovations, not necessarily a new construction, but renovating the existing building. As you can see, I've broken this up in two sections, $500,000 for design and construction management, and then I have $5 million allocated for construction costs. Now, of course, we don't know what the construction costs will be because we don't have the design, which is why I've broken that out. And so if we did the $500,000, we would then get a concept design and construction design, so then we will actually know what construction costs would look like in this case.
Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 5th.
Yes, sir. Mr. Lampkin, I thought we had money in 8 for animal shelter. We don't have money in 8 for an animal shelter?
No, sir, no.
It was on the original listing, but it was removed from funding. So that may be what your recollection is.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Augusta Animal Services submitted a request for SPLOST 8 back when all of these SPLOST 8 requests were submitted to the administrator. However, it did not make it to the final listing. So just as we're talking about all of the projects today, you received a similar presentation then in which Animal Services was included.
All right, Commissioner Lewis, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Johnson. So, Director Lampkin, on
Yes.
this animal shelter, and it's saying renovation, that means that we're talking about the existing building and doing some work, cosmetic upgrades or whatever to that building. It's to my understanding that's an aged facility. Did we not, or I don't know if Mr. Hill, Director Hill, put in a request for a new building as opposed to renovating that building? And if he did, I don't know if you would have a projected cost of a new building, animal control building, but I just don't want to see us putting $5 million to renovate a building and you got the same footprint as opposed to us looking at actually building a new building that will give us additional space that we're going to need and that we already need and that we're going to need. So it's my hope that Director Hill can, I know this is just an outlay of a wish list, but it's my hope that Director Hill would get with Administrator Dowse or yourself and let's talk about running the gamut on this animal control, this animal shelter we have. We need a new one. It needs to be new. I don't want to do renovating. I would propose that we look at actually building a new facility.
Yes, sir. It wasn't asked for a new facility in SPLOST 8. Like I said, I was not here, but I was aware that that did not make the list. What I'm asking for, because we can't actually come up with a concrete dollar amount because we don't have any plans before us, is that's where if we would approve the $500,000, then we could get us a design or a design firm on board who can evaluate the current building to say, hey, this building is worth renovating, or this would be the cost of renovations, or this is what a new building would cost you. So that way we can have a concrete dollar amount.
I understand that. I appreciate that effort too, but I don't know if I want to pay. I don't know if I want to pay $500,000 for somebody to tell me that that we need another building.
No, that would not be.
I'm just saying, I would just rather take the $500,000 and put it toward the new building. I don't need them to tell. I already know we need a new building.
Right. So with the $500,000, it wouldn't just say we need. It would give us a design for a new building or either a renovation. Right.
I do understand. Believe me, I understand what you're saying, and I just want to throw that out. But that would encompass us getting to where we want to be with the design. So I'm more into moving toward that as opposed to renovating that building. So SPLOST 9, if Director Hill, Administrator Dowse, if we can get together and do what we need to do to make sure that we can squeeze that on this SPLOST 9 list. It was on 8, and it didn't, and 8 is beyond us now, and nothing moved on it. So I think that we're in dire need of a new facility, and if it don't happen now, and it may not ever happen, but if we put it in now, there's a possibility that we can get it down the road because we need it. And I don't think things are going to slow down for us in the future. We've outlived that building. So it's time for us to move on toward a bigger and better building. Yes, sir, Mr. Knapp.
Commissioner Lewis, I just want to caution. The reason why I'm saying we should do the design first is so we don't get into a situation where we saying, hey, let's just put $10 million in here for a new building to find out later it's going to cost us $15 million. So that's why I'm asking for the design process to be complete and the concept so that we can get some good cost estimates.
I'm on board with you with that, okay. Director Lampkin. I'm on board with you with that. That at least lets us know where we are and where we need to get.
Correct.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Chair recognizes Commissioner Franham from himself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for Ms. Donna. Ms. Donna, when does this list have to be finalized to make sure that it gets to the voters in next November or whenever?
We pick the election date from it's a backwards process. So we try to make sure that the voters vote on this a year before the expected date of end, which is end of 26. That's the projected date of end of collections for SPLOST 8. So we would want to have this to the voters for one of the predetermined election dates.
November 2025?
Yeah, so we picked
so
November.
If we go in there, when do you have to have the list? When do we have to have the list
finalized? Then it goes, how many, is there a set, is it 90 days? I think it's 90, but we usually try to do it before then so that we can have some of those community action, the workshops, explain, the road show, that you try to inform your citizens about the projects that are listed in the referendum and what it will mean for each of them.
So basically, this body doesn't have to vote to get it really approved until about May of next year.
That would be a good timeline. That way you can let everything settle down. We've got a number of workshops, to talk about. We're just getting started today.
Right, for sure. No, I just think that's important to understand that there's no rush here. We got till May of next year to vote on all this stuff. My second question is, I've noticed other municipalities put a dollar amount, instead of putting jail, animal services, boom, 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 boom. They just put facilities in, let's say, 100 million. Why does Augusta not do it that way?
It's a trust issue.
It's a trust issue?
Pretty much, as Augusta has found that its voters like to know exactly the projects that are out there instead of a big SPLOST category that says public services, public facilities, and then fill in the blanks later. It's just a, and it's a way of providing information to your citizens about the intent and what their money's going to be used for. You know, I think that it's good to be specific about especially your large projects. Obviously, there are things such as that come up in central services that just need to be HVAC replacements. You don't know which ones are going to go out, but you do know that they are going to go out. But if you're going to build a facility or have a large project, jail pod, animal services, et cetera, it's good to let the folks know what you plan on doing with the funds. That's just my opinion.
And I bring that up too because like the first one was RCCI, like because of the fact that this previous body put 11 million on it, I mean, it should be non-negotiable that the RCCI should be on the next SPLOST to finish the project. I mean, we get in trouble around this government for not finishing the project, and it kind of puts us in a box when we put the project in the amount, if we don't get to it. And then, I mean, it should be a no-brainer, and I think the next SPLOST meeting eventually ought to be like showing the current commission like what was on the last SPLOST that hadn't happened, because basically everyone's going to need supplemental money, it sounds like, because cost went up. So if we really don't know where we are with those projects, then we're kind of going at it a little bit blind, because like I said, the RCCI, that's already 14 million. I mean, that's gone. We know we have to support that project.
That's 11.
It's
14,
14 more. It's 11 we got. It's 14 more. So that's 14 of the 300.
And I'll be happy to forward the status of the SPLOST report. Projects are in the back section of the quarterly reports as to, you know, how much has been spent towards each one. But I'll be happy to, and your book from the other day.
But again, I just think I appreciate that, because I just think we as a body, you know, some of us won't even vote on this, but understanding where we've been and where we're going, like I said, the RCCI is like a no-brainer. We have to support that because it's a project of SPLOST 8.
And it's not unusual to have to fund a project in more than one SPLOST phase. We've done that before. You get started and you put it towards the end of this phase and you let it pick up and be finished in the next phase. So it stretches the funds a little bit further.
I appreciate you saying that too. Thank you.
Okay.
Administrator Dowse?
Mayor Johnson, I just wanted to add, when we were speaking of the timing issue, historically, Augusta has encountered SPLOST packages that don't pass the first go-round. And so we wanted to get started as soon as possible to make certain that the road shows that that Ms. Williams just spoke of are clear to the public. So when it goes out for vote, November 2025, estimated, that it will be clear and it will be good, because if not, it's going to roll into 2026. Okay.
All right. Chair recognizes Commissioner Stacy Pulliam from the second.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Administrator Dowse, thank you for saying estimated. My question goes back to the animal shelter. Although we don't have exact numbers when doing projects like that, because I'm not going to say the whole body, but the conversation has kind of been surrounding demoing and rebuilding. So there's an appetite maybe for doing something like that. Are we not able to look at other similar projects, and as long as we get a close estimate? Because what I continue to hear is that we're having to go back to add more money anyway, because it's not going to happen in the next year or two, which means there's going to be inflation and there's going to be, you know, more money for construction at that point anyway. So are we not able to do that without just doing that $500,000? To my colleague, Commissioner Lewis's point, can we get rough estimates, present that with the knowledge of it's going to potentially be an increase? That way we can be working towards that larger ticket item.
Originally in my project management experience, that would not be the way to go, because we have specific needs for our animal shelter. So it would be better to get a design firm on board so that Director Hill could say, hey, this is what I need for my facility. These are the type of kennels. This is the type of flooring that I would like to have. This is what we, and so that way you get exact or close to exact, because you still will not be able to get an exact number, but off a concept that he comes up with. And like I said, I'm just saying 500,000, that will get us started. We may not even use the entire 500,000, but it's the way for him to be able to sit down with a design firm to say, hey, this is what I envision, this is what I need. We have 20,000 square foot now, but we probably need 25. And so that way they can come up with a design that he wants and that will fit our needs here in Augusta.
Thank you. All right. Let's continue, Director Lapkin.
All right, and so the next facility will be housing and community development renovations for the building on Fenwick Street. I think they moved there in 2018, 2019. I also believe they submitted a request for SPLOST 8 that did not make it. Once again, because of the size of the building, I would be asking for about $3.3 million. One, again, would be for design and construction management with the $300,000 so that we can do some space designs. I have walked the building with Director Welcher and some staff about some of their needs and what they have planned for the building. And once again, like I said, we have some issues with that building that definitely needs to be corrected, and a lot of those are inside of the building. So I have met with them. Once again, we do not have to fund the $3.3 million. $300,000 will help us get started in the design process, and then we can move from there.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bobby Williamson V.
Yes, sir. You threw out $3.3 million. Is that your estimate, or is that a professional company that you hired to do that? Or I guess what I'm, you know, you got certain things you're asking for, certain amount of money. Are you getting opinions from folks outside the system, or this is just your professional
Right.
opinion?
These are just, once again, rough numbers after we've done a walkthrough of the building and say, oh, it could, you know, we can potentially do what they're asking for, about $3 million. But like I said, I don't like to do rough numbers because today is $3 million, but tomorrow it'll be $5 million. And so in order for us to get a good estimate, we need a concept, which is where you get into the design costs, and then now you can say we have a concept, we're going to take these walls down, put these walls up, and here's the concept before you, and it's going to cost you roughly it could be $2.5 million to get it done once we feel the needs of the department.
So my question is, how much would it cost to hire somebody who could go through these things with you and possibly give you some really good numbers?
And see, I'm not sure that would be a procurement process where we would go procure a design firm. I know we may have some through engineering or some other departments that we have on-call design firms that we maybe can reach out to them, but that would be a cost that we would have to incur before the SPLOST package.
Yes, sir. All right, all right.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do agree with Hawthorne's, all his accolades that he's been doing down there on Laney Walker. His building there, when he brings potential contractors, tenants, et cetera, I think it needs to be of the same statute that what they would expect down there, building first-class facilities, and no different than the Lennox building that just came up. So I'm in agreement with this one. Thank you.
Commissioner Garrett from the 8th.
Thank you. The current building they're in, I know we just went through some renovations on it. What did we spend on those renovations?
That renovations was for the larger building, which is our DFAX, was what we leased to DFAX. The building that they are housing is the smaller brick building. No renovations was done to that building, but the building to the DFAX, I think it ended up being about $1.8 million total, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the DFAX building was almost $4 million.
$4 million, oh, yeah.
And we did do some smaller painting and carpet, things like that, just to make the facility for HCD presentable, but that was less than $50,000, also including some upgrades to their HVAC equipment. So their portion of the building, about 10,000 square feet, has not seen an overhaul and renovations.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Director, let's continue.
All right. Next, you'll see in meeting with Mark Bowen, our coroner, he's also asked for a new facility. Once again, He's also stated that he needs more space. He's limited in cooler space that he's had, and he's asked for about $6 million, and that number is based off of, to Commissioner's Pulliam point, Aiken has just built a new facility, and it cost them roughly about $5 million. He may need a little more space than Aiken, of course, so it kind of roughly estimated about $6 million. But once again, I did put cost in there to get a design done for what he's asking for. He's kind of limited on land where he is now, so it may be a situation where he has to move the office. We do have some potential spaces that I've suggested to him. So we won't have to do a land purchase if that's the case. One of those locations where it's next to our 911 office where we have those old trailers that we will be demolishing. Also, that includes that little building to the right of those trailers that we actually own that property as well.
Commissioner Scott.
And that's what I was going to ask, because I had been in conversation with the coroner, and he said there was some maybe potential land that we can use. And, you know, I think it's something that we need to support because he's been asking for it for a long, long time.
Move some of these buildings into the same building. HCD in the corner together. Put on one side of the building, one on the other. Hey, put them out here with the.
All right, Commissioner Fram.
My question is, can we combine some of these needs into one building and find some land? I mean,
that's always a possibility. We can combine departments. I mean, we already have some combined departments with utilities and engineering, so it's definitely something that could be looked at.
what about the Craig Houghton and the left side of that? I mean, can we move one of these two that we've just mentioned on that aspect? Like,
You on the corner there.
I don't know. I mean, like,
It might be a good way to scare the kids.
I'm not saying that one necessarily, but we talked about three different. I guess my thing is we should look. I mean, and who's to say that animal services needs to stay that far away out there anyway? Like, can we move them somewhere else where we have property or something?
Right. That could be a potential ask, and that's where if we got a design firm on board, we can say what combination buildings would look like. So that's not out of the ordinary. That's something we can do.
I've been to the coroner's office a few times. He needs help. So
Right.
definitely support this one, guys.
All right, Commissioner Garrett, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Question is for the administrator. Looking at some of these projects, is it typical that any project cost, that 10% is going to be the design cost?
Because I've been out of that realm for a couple of years, that would be a better question for Director Lampkin. Historically, it was not 10% for A&E services, but I can't speak to what the costs have been as of late regarding his construction projects. So if you would, please pose that question to him.
Well, I bring that up because I just went through this process as chairman at Serenity Mental Health, and that's a roughly $24 million project, and our design costs were far, far below 10%. So, and that was just done last year. So just throwing that one out there because I keep seeing this 10%, and I know that you're wanting a buffer there to cover costs, but that's a tough one to swallow.
And reason being, Commissioner Garrett, you are correct, but normally design firm, engineering firm cost is based off a certain percentage of your construction costs. Since we don't have design, and normally what we've been seeing is just like if you go back to some of our other projects like RCCI or the juvenile court or the ones that we have in the market, those projects came in at about 6 to 8% of construction costs. So that's what we're getting when it comes to design. And then when we say construction costs, not just design, but that also includes the project management as well.
Sure, and I bring that up because are we approaching these projects in the wrong way and putting a price out there first, saying, hey, this is going to be a $6 million project, instead of going to a firm saying, hey, this is the square footage we need, these are the things that we need within it, what's it going to look like?
Right, and that's what I was saying with the animal services. Sit down with the design firm, this is what my needs are, this is what I need, and then we can come up with the cost at that point.
All right, Director, let's continue.
All right, the next is our facility improvements, on-call services. As Donald said, we do have things that come up as emergencies, like replacing HVAC units, replacing roofs. In SPLOST 8, it was $5 million set aside for these services. And SPLOST 9, we're asking for $10 million due to the fact that we constantly have to replace things that were not accounted for. So this gives us that opportunity to do that with those funds. And like I said, SPLOST 8, it was $5 million, and SPLOST 9, we're asking for a total of $10 million to help with offset some of those costs. Just an example is this week alone we've had, and the reason why she brought up HVAC, because right before we came, we have an emergency HVAC unit replacement at May Park for about $60,000 that we got to replace because the unit is out and the gym is hot. So that's what those costs will be covered in this line item right here.
Okay, Commissioner Garrett.
Do any of these projects fall under the train contract that we're currently operating under?
No, they do not. Those were not replacements under that contract.
Okay. And we're positive on that one?
I'm positive.
Okay.
All right, Director, let's continue.
Next is the Parks and Recreation, a new building for them. They have estimated, and I received this estimation from them at $1.5 million. Once again, some ideas that they have of construction, a new building at their existing location, because they do have that baseball field behind them that is not being utilized. So that would have to be a land purchase. Once again, I would also ask for a design. Maybe this is one of those situations where you can have a combination building as well with some of the other departments.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner Scott.
The baseball field that we're not utilizing, which baseball?
I think it used to be the old T-ball field that's right behind their building that sits on Lumpkin Road.
That's correct.
Right, they don't do games there anymore. So it's just.
Okay.
All right, let's continue.
Now we have the 5th Street Bridge zip line, the Family Outdoor Adventure Center that we were looking to do. In SPLOST 8, $1.7 million was put in SPLOST 8 for this project. What that was is a kind of family entertainment center or area down at our depot area at the 5th Street Bridge. We're looking at an additional $3 million only because this is what we have. If you see the picture, you'll see that there is the 5th Street Bridge, of course, and then you'll be able to zip line from one side over on the marina side to the bridge and then back off the bridge to a landing pad on the other side. Also included in this would be what you're looking at now with those umbrellas are what they call donut boats. So what you will be doing is making this area down here an family activity center where you could take the boats and sail around the river and come back. And so those are some of the concepts that we have been working on. We have a MOU in place right now with the Convention Center Bureau with Jennifer Bowen. We've been meeting with design firms who's come up with this. Just a live shot of what those towers look like. It also would include rock climbing and some other things. So these are the towers that you will zip line off at the bridge. It's a great project. It's something that everybody could enjoy. Oh, I'm sorry, I went back. And so those are what these towers look like. And so that would be, the first tower would go, and we're about to demo that building, in that parking area to the right of the bridge that used to be the architect's office before. Lawyer, yeah, so we're about to demo that building, so that's the location we're looking at for the first tower, and then a tower on the bridge to zip line back over. So we're asking for additional funds to continue to support the growth of that. Some ideas would be that it would be a triple zip line where you can zip line down the marina area, then across to the bridge, and then back to that landing area in that parking lot. So this would be an expansion of that project so we can continue to grow the riverfront and the activities that we have in that area.
All right, don't see any questions. Let's continue.
And then here are some additional requests and SPLOST acts. One is the new boathouse, our replacement of the marina, our W.T. Johnson Center replacement, more money for our Diamond Lakes Regional Park to do additional work out there, maintenance and capital replacement of our swimming pools, our May Park Center upgrades, also looking into doing a multi-gym athletic complex, and then additional money for our cemeteries. Those asks came for Parks and Recreation, who's been working with ISM to come up with some of their capital needs. Once again, looking at some of this, and as Commissioner Frantum had mentioned, if we did a multi-gym athletic complex, that would be something where we had multiple gyms in there, so we may be able to do away with some of those other gyms because we have a larger facility that can be used. We believe that a multi-gym complex would also bring in different tournaments and help us with our economic impact.
All right, Chair recognizes Commissioner Francine Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to bring up and ask about the water park and where we are, and should it be a part of the additional request, and also Fleming Ballpark is another ask, and I'm not sure where we are with that, and should that be included?
Okay, I can answer those questions. I'm not sure if Recreation and Parks has reached out or had any further discussions on the water park situation. I know that we have $5 million that was initiated in SPLOST 8 to get this started. Of course, out of concern of it's been a location of where it should be. I've heard talks about that, and also about having additional funding for the water park. But once again, we don't have a design in place or a location to discuss how much additional funding will be needed at this time. That's something that could be brought back, and I will meet with Recreation and Parks to discuss that further. As far as our Fleming complex on Lumpkin Road, we had a demolition procurement that was done, so we will be getting ready to demo that park, and then we also have construction that will be bid after that, and funding is already available. Until it bids, I believe right now, according to Recreation and Parks, we have enough funding to complete the project, so we shouldn't need any additional in SPLOST 9.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Commissioner Tony Lewis from the 6th.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. Director Lampkin, the $5 million that we have already from SPLOST 8 for the water park, am I correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And we haven't had any conversation or any discussion on moving forward in any direction with that particular venture. So if we don't get something on in 9 for that, it seems like this water park thing may not even materialize, although we have monies from 8, $5 million. If we don't get something in 9 to accompany those $5 million, then we're talking 4 or 5 years down the road. That may not even happen. But this has been discussed 3, 4 years, maybe longer than that ago. So wouldn't it be prudent for us to at least include some additional funding for that, so that if the money is available, you know, I'm with this notion, you build it, they'll come. I think we've got to move on this particular project, and we can't kick this can down the road 2 and 3 and 4 more years, and then have to come before the people to put it on a SPLOST package. It's going to take additional time to get it and things of that nature, and that's just pushing this thing down, further and further down. Folks are excited, and we're excited about even the conversation we had about a splash, you know, about a water park. And you talk about 4 years ago, and then now we don't have a $5 million, and then the question's going to be, we'll be asking whoever the administrator is, the funding source, where we're going to get the rest of the money from. I just think I think when we go back, I think we need to add, I think, you know, and I understand this is all preliminary. Let's add something to that conversation too, please. Put it in rec part, Administrator Dowse, let's add something to that. Because we're having discussions all the time about this water park. Commissioner Moses Todd comes before us just about twice a year, 3 times a year, reminding us about this water park, and we don't do anything. All we do is listen to it. We've got to start making some action toward making this thing happen. And I know one of our ills is how we're going to operate it. We want to do a public-private partnership, some kind of way. Let's get the money. We can worry about how we're going to operate it after we have the money. But if we don't get the money, then we're just pushing this thing further and further down the road. So help me out in that area, please. Please, sir, help me out.
Right, I will definitely get with Recreation and Parks and open that discussion back up. And like I said before, I think as my time in the Administrator's Office Capital Projects Manager, this was one of the things that I did look at. And I know one of the issues at the time was the location and exactly what we were looking for in a water park. Talking to some people in Statesboro, Splash, and the Borough, it was told that to get to where they are now, that roughly ran about $13 to $15 million, and they kind of phased it in. So once again, I mean, that's already been in discussion, but some decisions have to be made as far as location. And then that conversation did come up about public-private partnerships. So that's something that has to be looked into. So we can get some numbers, but once again, it's all going to be determined on location and what exactly are we trying to do when we talk about water park.
I got the location, Diamond Lakes. I'll leave it.
I already talked about that.
You're right. Commissioner, Chair recognizes Commissioner Francine Scott.
Yes, and I just wanted to say the location was discussed early. And I think when we voted for it, it had something that said it would be in South Augusta or Diamond Lakes or something like that. So we need to stop fooling people who elect us to sit up here and they want something, and then 4 years down the road we forget we only have $5 million and we hadn't moved the $5 million. So I think this is something that we need to have look at. And every time I'm in South Augusta, they asking me, and especially now that Commissioner Alvin Mason is out, they're on me every time I go to one of the community meetings about it. And by the way, Commissioner Mason is having this procedure today. So thank you so much.
Right, and as you can see in the project, we do have $15 million for Diamond Lakes Regional Park if we need to increase that, and that would be for activities or to increase activities at that park. So we can maybe increase that amount to add to it as far as the water park is concerned. But like I said, that'll be conversations that I can sit down with Recreation and Parks and have.
All right, thank you for that. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bobby Williamson V.
Yes, sir. I thought we did vote on the location. So I want to ask the administrator if you'll check with Ms. Bonner to see if we had a definite vote on the location of the water park and get back with us. If not, we need to put it on the agenda so that we can vote on the location and move forward with additional funding for the water park. Is it okay with everybody for the administrator to check that out for us?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner Sean Fromm.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm loving that we're having this conversation because I was one of the ones that made sure it was a part of the package, and we did agree that it would be at Diamond Lakes. We didn't know exactly where at Diamond Lakes, but we definitely said that. We also said that it was $5 million for a public-private partnership where we would take the $5 million, we'd take the land, and then we go find a private company to help support the rest. And when you said $13 million, I remember we knew that we had almost half the amount of money. So this is why I brought up the date of May next year. Like, we have time to get this right to know if there's people interested. I mean, we need to start the process to see if we can find a company that's willing to start it, because over the next 3 to 4 to 5 months, we can see if the $5 million and if the land land, if we supplement that, is that enough to bring someone in to make this reality? Because it needs to be reality before the SPLOST vote, because if it isn't reality before the SPLOST vote, it will be one of those things that could kill us the next SPLOST, because we agreed to it. So I think wherever we need to do to start the process to get, whether it's RFQ, RFP, whatever it is, to find the land, to start the process of finding private interest with the $5 million and with the supplementing the land, I mean, that's quite a, somebody's going to be interested. I mean, I hear that they're clearing $3 million down there at Splash of the Borough. I mean, but we know that we all agreed too that the city wasn't going to run the water park. So, and I think we know that we don't need to be in that business for liability and many other reasons. But this is definitely something that needs to get moving so that when the final vote for SPLOST does happen for SPLOST 9, we know if we need to supplement more money or not.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Brandon Garrett.
And I completely agree with my colleagues in their support of moving this forward. I've been really disappointed that has not been a bigger push by our Parks and Rec department in the last year in getting this out on the street and getting some movement there, at least to give the commission an idea of, what it's going to look like and potentially what's at stake for this next SPLOST package. We're having a conversation here today, and we have no idea if we have to put any more additional in there because we haven't even asked the question. And maybe that's our fault for not pushing it more, but I think a lot of us were putting that on the department, and that first year we kept hearing, well, we got to wait for collections, Well, the collections are here, and we're ahead of schedule, and so I think that it's pertinent that not only for the taxpayers but for this body up here that supported this project, let's put this on the street. Let's go find a company that's willing to come work with us. It's not often that free land is part of an opportunity for somebody to come in and potentially partner with the city.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chair recognizes Commissioner from the 10th, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We don't need to look anywhere else besides Diamond Lake for this water park. Madam Administrator, can we reach out to the development authorities, see if they could attract somebody that might be interested? Because we definitely been sitting on our hands on this whole project for over these past years, and it's true, Moses Todd has been before us, and matter of fact, he probably emailed all of us just now to bring it up. So I don't think we need to figure out any more money to add until we could find a potential partner. But I appreciate the conversation about this, and I know Mr. Mason will as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Pulliam, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. My question is, when Parks and Recs, they are going to be doing a presentation to us in the upcoming weeks, or is there a presentation that they'll be doing, Administrator Dowse?
That they will do about what?
Just period. Like, are they going to do an overview of their parks and the buildings that are in their possession? Is that, maybe I made that up in my head, and that's fine too.
Yeah, not to my knowledge.
Okay, and that's fine. That's not a problem. So my question then is, as far as I'm thinking about Carrie Mays and the consistent flooding in the Carrie Mays Center, I'm thinking about Dowdy Park and the question of what's going to happen with that facility and some of the needs that they have on the outside. Can we further those discussions? Because even as we're looking at what we have in our inventory, and we've discussed parks and what we're going to be doing, if we'll let some of those parks potentially become something else. But these facilities do need maintenance. Every time it rains, it floods in Carrie Mays, and that's a huge issue, especially since my seniors meet there on a daily basis. So.
You are definitely correct. There will be further discussions on those facilities, but that'll be outside of SPLOST 9. Right now, Recreation and Parks, and we just actually had our meeting before this with ISM and our consulting firm, and they are doing the evaluation on all these facilities, on all our parks, to discuss maintenance costs and our usability. So that will be brought to you guys in the presentation during our regular commission.
Thank you.
Madam Administrator?
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. I did not want it lost upon this body that Parks and Recreation, our former director, has made contact and has had conversations regarding the water park. What the details to those are, of course, I cannot divulge those at this moment because I don't have them with his absence. But yes, we will make certain to get this project moving forward. But I did not want you to think that conversations have not already occurred regarding opportunities for public-private partnerships and how that would work for Augusta.
Thank you, Madam Director. Does that conclude?
Right, so that concludes our projects for SPLOST 9 as far as facilities concerned. If you have any more questions, please feel free to ask now.
Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none, thank you, sir. Is that it? This presentation is hereby adjourned. Thank you all.